It's Katie Lee, and this is the I Am Z103 podcast.
Z103, it's Russell Storms. I'm here in the studio with Cyler. Cyler, you're in the music industry. How did you get started with music?
Yeah, so it started before my time. I'm fourth generation musician. My great-grandfather, Art Herrera, was the first serious musician in the family. And before he passed, he created a tradition where we have 3 family reunions every summer. That's how big my family is. We split them up. We're in Teutonia, Palisades, all over. They're big camping reunions, but it's always performance. So there's a stage, there's a generator, big show. Then it was my grandpa Marion. I grew up watching him singing like old Eagles songs and stuff on stage. And then it was my dad, who's probably the more serious musician in the family now. He's played in town for 30 years. So he does a bunch of shows. They just did Winterfest. His band played that. They play every other weekend at Roadhouse. So he's a pretty active musician. So growing up in that was kind of, it wasn't really a choice. It was kind of like you were thrown into it. I was a kid and I was thrown on stage. I was singing Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog. And I still get that to this day. I get aunts and uncles that are like, you sing that song, which I hate, but I'll always sing it for them. So baseball was actually my first love, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play college baseball, and it didn't play out that way. So I went to LA and I went to school for music. Initially, I was a vocal major, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do. I still, performance is still what I do. I still love to sing, play, write. But when I got to LA, I discovered the backside of the industry, the recording side. And I was so fascinated by it that I switched majors and I became an audio major. So I got my degree in audio engineering. So I got certified in Logic, Pro Tools, everything, Fruity Loops, just anything that I could get my hands on, whether it was digital or analog, I learned. And I got my degree that way. And so that left me in LA. And after school, I just started working in studios. I interned at Sony for a while. And then I didn't like the feel of the big studio feel. It was just a coffee runner and cable runner. And I watched sessions that I knew that I could run, but I couldn't run. So I started working for smaller studios. And that's how I ended up in Burbank. So Burbank in LA is what they call Studio Town. It's where every late night show is filmed. It's where every TV studio is. It's where every recording studio, other than the bigger ones in like Hollywood and stuff, are. So I ended up staying in Burbank pretty much my entire time there because that's where I worked, was in all these little studios. And then that led me to meeting artists and then them finding out, if I'm doing a demo, I'm checking the mic, but I'm singing a song, and then people finding out that I could sing and play, and that led me to tours. So I played for bands on tours, backup singing, playing guitar, and those connections led to, a bunch of other things, writing and co-producing and things like that. So I kind of did everything in LA that I could and that I wanted to until COVID hit. So.
And is that when you moved back to Idaho Falls?
No, I actually stayed during COVID. I was determined. Most of the industry left. So the corporate side of the industry in LA stayed, right? If you're in an executive office, you didn't have a reason to leave LA. But if you're a working musician, if you're someone who relies on shows and relies on traveling, obviously those things were shut down. So a big part of my network went to Austin, Nashville, New York, places where they could still work. And most of my band actually still is in Nashville right now. So I go out there once, twice a month and play shows out there with them. We all kind of have a house that we split. And I can go out there and see them. I haven't been out in a while because of Volstar. But so I actually transitioned my career during COVID from performance to, I had a writing group who is still together. They're called the Sonic Riders. They were 2 people in my first band, Matty Margallo and Sean Day. They're both Berklee alum, so they're very good musicians. Anyone that went to Berklee is just really gifted. And they and created a group called the Sonic Riders. And Maddie was fortunate enough to make a connection during COVID where what was the one thing that we all did during COVID? We sat at home and we watched TV. So there was all these multimedia streaming platforms that needed music. So we found a little niche of writing music every week and selling music to television shows. And it was interesting because we started with a Chinese company, actually, which is funny because China is a communist-controlled entertainment company or country. So if we're writing for a TV show, we're essentially writing for a TV show that's going to be seen by the entire country, not just by a small group of people that want to watch this show. So we got in with them and we started writing music every week and we sold that music, and that was how we kind of survived through COVID. And that led to other things. We had stuff placed on Netflix, on ABC, on Hulu. So it was a really cool moment for me because it was kind of like a light bulb of like, oh, I don't have to spend my time on the road dying eating ramen noodles at every single gas station. I can work from home and I can work from anywhere. And so I started writing more and producing more. But I still love to perform. So I still did that when I got the chance. Even through COVID, it was tough. But I think that my new love now, especially getting older now, I'm 32 now, is writing and producing. And I love doing that. And I love visiting Nashville because it's a writer's town. I mean, you throw a rock into a hole in the wall bar and you see someone that's like, how are they not famous and on tour? But it's someone you can write for. And I had a teacher put it to me this way. He says, if you're an artist and you're playing the lottery, you have one ticket, right? And you're cashing in on that one ticket to win the lottery. But if you're a writer and a producer and you're working with all of these artists, now you have all of these lottery tickets that you have a chance to cash in on. And so when I talk to young guys now that come out of school, they're like, what do I want to do? And I said, well, if you want to perform, but make sure that you know how to write and produce, because that opens so many different doors for you. And that was kind of how I was able to survive through COVID. I came back after COVID, actually. And I came back because my older sister has cancer. She's fighting cancer. And I came home to be with family. And, I have 7 siblings and 13 nieces and nephews that some of them I didn't even get to see born. So it's cool to be here now and have them know me other than just a face on FaceTime. So it's nice to be here. But I still do music. I still pursue music. Idaho has grown so much since I've been gone for 12 years. And I was so blown away by coming back and seeing how much it's grown here. The opportunities we have with Mountain America, and even some of the smaller venues that I've seen pop up. The Gem I see is doing well. There's the Heart. There's some other venues out there that I know that are booking some pretty cool local artists and bringing in some surrounding talent too. So my new goal, getting older, is to help produce and write for the next generation and kind of build a music scene here. Because I left at 19, 20 years old because I didn't have a choice. There was nothing here like that for me. But now these kids have an opportunity. So I want to be a part of the community here in building something and giving these kids an opportunity to show them you don't have to leave with a bag of clothes like I did and rough it out. There's chances here for you to do things. It's just, what do you want to do? That's what you got to figure it out. Because that was part of me going to LA, was figuring out what I want to do, right? I went there like, I'm going to be a singer. And I came back a writer and a producer. So things change. You go to college to figure out what you don't want to do, not what you want to do.
Right. So you came back and you're working on the music scene here in Eastern Idaho. Are you working on any of your own music, or are you more like really supporting people who need it here in Idaho Falls? Yeah,
every song that I write is with intention for me to sing. But sometimes you write a song and you hear someone else sing it and it's like, well, that makes more sense, right? So yeah, I still work on music for myself. I have a single out currently that's in rotation. It's on Spotify. It's on everything, everywhere. It's called I Won't Pretend. I co-wrote it with my friend Sean Carney, who is in LA. He does a bunch of stuff with his actually last 2 songs they played at Staples Center during the LA Kings playoff run. So every time that came on TV, it was his music. So he's one of those guys too that just knows those connections to get your song placed. Placement is huge as a producer. If you know curators for playlists like on Spotify, that's how you get your songs on those playlists and get more plays and more listens. If you know curators for venues like the Staples Center, well, now it's Crypto. I'll always call it Staples Center because I saw Kobe play there when it was still Staples Center. So I co-wrote it with him, and he is an amazing writer. He wrote all the music. He wrote the lyrics, but he's like, I don't have melodies. I don't have harmonies. I need you to come in and do this for me. So that was actually the last song I recorded in LA before I left LA. And we went through a lot of mixing and mastering and changing, and it finally came out a few weeks ago. So that's out everywhere. You can find that everywhere now. I went to my doctor's office the other day and I heard my nurse playing it in the hallway, which was super cool. But yeah, so that one's out. I do have other stuff out there too that's previous. I haven't released anything other than this single recently, just because I've been working on a lot of other people's stuff. I get a lot of emails from people in LA for co-writes, and so I do that. But now that I'm back, my best friend, Jordan Adams, who's lived here his whole life, arguably one of the best drummers in the state. I used to write with him before I left to LA, and he was the main guy that I was writing music with. And he's actually the one that got me into Voltstar, which is what I do now with live production. So now that I'm back with him, we've been co-writing and we've been working on a lot of stuff. And he plays in a band that tours really well. They play LA, they play all over the country, really. And they play with a lot of big guys, Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses and some of these older cats. So I've been co-writing with him now that I'm back. And now that I'm with him, writing is all about comfortability. It's as cliche as it sounds, creating music is a vibe, right? And it really is, because if you're writing with someone and there's no good vibes, you're not really going to create something that's going to be tangible or palatable for people to listen to, because people have to believe what they're listening to. And in order for that to happen, you have to believe what you're writing. So now that I'm back and I'm writing with Jordan, we're doing a lot of really cool stuff. So we have a lot of stuff that's about to come out. We have like a 4 terabyte hard drive of shared music that's just ready to go. So it's been a lot of fun being back and being writing with him again. So
yeah, awesome. Do you, what's the next project you're planning on releasing? Yeah,
so we have a band called Gem State. We wanted to obviously name it after something that was relevant to us and growing up, and Idaho being the Gem State. And also it just sounded cool. You know, that's kind of also part of naming a band, is what sounds cool. So our band name is Gem State. We're going to have some stuff coming out there, playing locally and also traveling too. We got some stuff booked in Boise, LA, Nevada. So we'll be traveling a lot and playing a lot. But being with Voltstar and working so closely with Mountain America, I've been trying to implore them to, you know, I don't see the contracts that come in for these artists that get booked, but I work very closely with those people that handle those contracts of who comes in, who gets booked, who's the next band, and all those things. And so I would love to see Mountain America step up and start to support local artists in, if they need an opener, book a local band, 30-minute set, 25-minute set, easy. Boise does it a lot. Pocatello does it a lot too. I know Mountain America's new, but I would love to see that happen in the future. And I would love to take advantage of that. I would love to be one of those bands that opens up for someone coming in. But obviously there's a lot of things involved, right? There's the tour, there's their decisions, it's the venue's negotiation. There's so many things that go in with that. But I think that if you have the credentials, if you have the talent, if you have the music recorded, that's the big thing, is a lot of guys will have a full set of music, but it's not recorded anywhere. So you need to have your stuff recorded for someone to listen to be able to judge you and decide if that is going to be something that they want to go forward with. And so that's what we've been working on, is pushing as much music as we can out, to have something out there to send venues to be like, hey, we would love to play your venue. Here's what we have. And unfortunately, we live in a day and age too, where you have to be like, here's our followers as well, right? Social media plays a big thing in that, which is fine. I used to work for Apple and I used to do social media management for them. When I lived in LA, that was one of my side jobs. So social media is something that I'm well versed in, and that I'm trying to work with Voltstar with as well too. So, but yeah, so I would love to see that happen at some point. But yeah, music is definitely something that I'm still pushing currently and recording a lot here in town, especially now that I moved my studio here. Jordan's got his studio too. I know a couple other guys in town that have some really nice studios as well. So there's a lot of that's the other thing too, is teaching these kids. There's a lot of resources here in town for you to use. There's a lot of really gifted people. Just because I went to LA and got my degree doesn't mean that there's a guy here that doesn't know how to record just as well. You know, you don't have to have a degree to learn it. And I learned that after school. I could have gone and interned at a studio and learned just as much as I did getting my degree, you know.
Do you think that your degree makes you more hireable? That people who maybe aren't versed in that space, do you think maybe they look at degrees and they just go, oh, like I don't want to worry about it. They have a degree, so just pick them?
I think the music industry is just like any other industry where they will look at that. But we live in this weird paradox of millennials dealing with, I have my degree, but I don't have the experience. Right. So a lot of businesses put us in this weird box of like, we need you to have your degree, but we need you to have your experience. Well, I just came out of college with my degree. How am I supposed to have that experience if you don't give me that experience? Right. So it's this weird paradox that we live in as millennials of dealing with that. But I don't think that it gives me a leg up necessarily. And I used to teach recording classes in LA, and I told kids that. I said, if you want to go to school and get your degree, by all means do it, because you're going to get to work on some of the nicest equipment. You're going to get to learn how to record analog and digital, which is huge. Even though we don't do a lot of analog now, it's still something cool to learn, because if you end up getting hired by a company that has all analog gear, then you know how to run that analog gear. Even though it's not something that's used widely, maybe you want to work for that company. You need to know how to do that. But a lot of studios will teach you how to do that too, without having to have a degree. Now, the difference is if I have my degree and I step into a studio, I might get on the board, the console, a little sooner than someone who's just interning without a degree. It's not to say that they're not going to get on the board. It's just they're going to have to climb a little longer, right? They're going to have to run coffee a little longer. They're going to have to manage cables a little longer. But that being said, being a fly on the wall is a huge resource too, because I learned a lot. Even having my degree, I learned a lot just sitting in studios and watching things happen. Even having my degree, I learned more than I did in school. So there's pros and cons to both. I'm glad I got my degree just because I have something to show for it, for all the money that I paid. But there were moments where I did kick myself in the butt when I was in studios and talking to some of these guys who are doing multi-million, platinum records and gold records. And they're like, yeah, I never went to school. I just learned it in the studio. And I'm like, oh man, so pros and cons to it. I'm an advocate for going and learning, just because there's also going to school. You get a lot of that alone time on the board, right? So in a studio, you got to build your way up and then you learn the board. In school, you have dedicated time. I was a night owl, so I took the night classes. So I was in there from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m., but I had the studio to myself. So I got to really dive into the boards, learn everything that I wanted to learn. If I messed something up, there's no pressure on me. I can fix it there and learn the ins and outs that way. So definitely pros and cons to both. But it's not a necessity. I don't think that an audio degree is a necessity for someone that wants to learn. I think that you can learn as long as someone's willing to teach. So.
Definitely. What's like the biggest piece of advice you'd give to musicians here in this area that are trying to make it?
Just hone your craft. I mean, the thing that I wish that I would have known at a young age is that you don't have to leave. Like LA was cool, man. And I made some of the coolest connections that I still have to this day. I used to play basketball with Peanut every Thursday from 311, the bass player. I used to live with half the band of the Downtown Fiction, who I looked up to. They used to play Warped Tour back in the day. Like, all these connections I made were super cool, but they didn't benefit me in my career. They were more so just like friends. They were real friends. So I guess I would say, you don't have to leave to pursue what you want to do, but you do need to get out to experience, at least. You don't have to move, but travel, book a show out of town, book a show out of state if you can make it work with you and your friends. But understand both sides of it. Don't just start a garage band and play as loud as you can. Understand what you're creating. And we have so much software now. I tell people this all the time. This is what blew my mind when I learned in audio school. At the time when I was in school, 6 out of the top 20 songs on the Billboard charts at the time were done in GarageBand, which is a free software that comes with any Apple computer. So it doesn't matter what you have, it's what you do with it. So learn. In today's day and age, I would recommend that the modern music, any of these kids, which they're good with technology now, right? Learn the software. Learn how to play first, because you have to be able to emulate that live, right? You can't just do it at home on a computer and then hope to go on a stage and make it happen. Learn your craft, but also learn the software that's available to you. There's so much out there. You can do so much with it. I'm a big fan of it, and I'm an old school guy, but I use software so much, especially as a producer, especially when a TV studio emails me or someone emails me and they're like, we need this, this, and this, right? You're not always going to get that out of a guitar, out of a drum set. You're going to have to use some software sometimes. So understand where the industry is going and change with it. Don't be stuck in your ways. I meet all these kids that love AC/DC, that love Metallica, and that's great. And they did great for their time. But you have so much stuff available to you now that can make you understand sound so much more. One of my favorite artists right now is Jacob Collier. And he is the epitome of the evolution of an artist. What he does in his music would normally be viewed as doing too much, quote unquote. But he's such a genius and he's so evolved that he finds a way to do these things and it makes sense. And it's because he understood, I have all of these things at my arsenal and I'm going to use all of them. So use everything that you have. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. And don't be afraid to explore your resources, because Idaho Falls growing is so much. There's so much media and multimedia going on here now, especially with these big venues and bigger bands coming in. Luke Bryan, Kane Brown, Tool that we did. Like, that blew my mind that we got Tool. That you don't need to leave, but you need to travel. That's the thing. You need to see what's going on in other states. You need to see what's going on in other music communities. Or, we could be the next Seattle. You never know. Back in the day, Seattle bands didn't want to tour up there. They didn't want to go all the way up to Seattle. So what happened? They created their own music scene. And that was how grunge was born, was because no one wanted to visit Seattle. So they said, we'll make our own. We'll make our own music scene. This is going to be our own niche. And that was how we got bands like Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots. That whole grunge scene was created because no one wanted to come there. Well, for a long time, no one wanted to come here and play. Now we have Mountain America. But that's still not to say that we can create our own music scene here, right? There's a sound that can be made here. There's a voice to be heard here. So it's just the next generation, right? I'm the old guy now. I'm not even old, but I'm the old guy now. So, yeah, that's kind of what I would tell people probably.
Okay. Good advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks for listening to the IMZ 103 podcast. If you enjoyed the interview, please share, subscribe, and rate the podcast. IMZ 103 is hosted by Katie Lee and is a production of Riverbend Media Group. For more information or to contact the show, visit riverbendmediagroup.com.